Awesome. Okay, so it looks like we are live. And in this stream, me and my friend Jack are going to be developing a pastebin clone. This is going to be a series of live streams.
Hello.
A pastebin clone, anonymous pastebin clone. So hopefully it won't be too complicated of a project. Over the course of the next couple weeks, be doing a stream about once a week. And Jack, how much experience with coding do you have?
Just about none. I did a little bit of coding just back about in my middle school days, and I developed a few side-scroller games in Game Maker, which had a coding language, which is kind of like a spin-off of JavaScript, but not much outside of that.
All right, so that sounds just perfect. This will be great for anyone who's just looking to get into web programming. You can follow along with these streams, and hopefully we'll all learn something along the way. Now, another note that I'd like to say just before we dive into this project is usually when I do a project, like on a YouTube video or something, it's something that I have kind of pre-scripted. I've made sure, like, okay, these are the possible things I might run into, and here's how to fix them so that everything goes smoothly when I record the video, or I edit it out afterwards so everything looks nice. In this stream for this project, I haven't actually prepared very much at all. I'm just going off of, I've had experience coding, and this is going to be a very raw development process. We're going to run into lots of stupid bugs. We're going to run into lots of interesting bugs, and we might have to turn around and, backtrack and possibly reset a lot of work. But that's just part of the coding process. So, guess let's just jump in. So Jack, this is an HTML document. Are you familiar with HTML?
Yes, somewhat.
Okay, so what does this tell you right now? Just to get a feel of like where we are with HTML.
So my understanding is that this is a header, correct?
Yeah.
Just from what I'm reading.
Right, so this is like the header portion of the HTML document. It's a lot of just metadata right now. So like this is the HTML like doc type header. It just tells the browser what type of HTML we're using. In this case, this is the HTML5 doc type declaration. And all the other doc type declarations for HTML 4.01 and XHTML and the variants are very ugly. This is by far the nicest looking one. So it's very easy to read. It means HTML5. Just about every HTML document nowadays uses this doc type declaration. Then we have this HTML tag. HTML is an XML-based markup language, which means that you have like a lot of these things that are called tags, which start with the little less than sign.
Okay, explain to me what XML-based means, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, great question. So XML is kind of like a really general data storage language. It's a markup language. It stands for Extensible Markup Language, and it organizes. I guess I'm just going to pull up the Wikipedia article here. It organizes data into things called tags, attributes, and then you can also just have text content. So a tag is labeled, so you could have a tag called HTML, for example, in our HTML file. It's XML based. This is an HTML tag, and it wraps a whole bunch of other content. So here's the beginning of the tag up here, and here's the end of the tag down on line 10. So everything between line 2 and line 10 is inside of this tag called HTML. In order to start a tag, so I'm just going to come down here a little ways. So in order to start a tag, it looks like this. You have the less than sign, and then the name of the tag, and then the greater than sign. And then everything after this is inside of tag name until I write the same thing, except with this / So that will end the tag. So you can have.
And then anything you put in between those two lines of code, that would be the tag itself, correct?
Yeah, that's the contents of the tag. And the contents of a tag in XML if you don't have any specification that says otherwise, the contents of a tag can be more tags, it can be one tag, it can be just plain text like this, and that's all valid XML, right?
Okay.
So let's see. Oh, and one more important thing. So you can have tags inside of here, this space here, you can have attributes, which specify like metadata about the tag. So tag name, maybe this is like language equals English, so the contents of this tag are English, whereas the contents of this tag are Spanish, something like that, right?
Okay.
So HTML is a variant, or maybe a subset, kind of. It's derived from XML. So you have this tag right here, which is the HTML tag, everything inside of that. In a well-formed HTML document, you only have one HTML tag, and the entire contents of the page go inside of that single solitary HTML tag.
Okay.
This is an attribute, specifies the language of the document. English, pretty straightforward. This could be, like Japanese, or it could be Spanish, So that's what
all right. That
means.
just specifies the language of the page.
Yes, and that is, I don't think that's absolutely mandatory. It just is better semantically. So
yeah, it makes sense.
Then inside of this tag, the head tag, that specifies metadata about the HTML document that we're writing. In this case, I only have two tags containing this metadata. One of them is literally called a meta tag, and it contains single attribute specifying the character encoding of the document. In this case, it's UTF-8, which is by far the most it's the one that you should probably use all of the time. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Sure.
Other things you could put in here would be
UTF.
like ASCII or UTF-16 or something like that. But UTF-8 is the safest one.
UTF-8 is standard. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we have the title of the page. And here is where we're actually going to get to have a little bit of fun. Because this will actually show up, like none of this actually matters to the person who's viewing our web page. They don't care it's written with a UTF-8 character encoding. They don't care that it's in English unless they don't speak English, right? It's nothing special to the average website visitor that the web page that they're going to happens to be in their language, unless it's an accident. So this is actually interesting because this title tag, this text will appear in the web page. It'll appear up here, like in the title bar. If I switch over here, actually, I'm going to reveal this in my file explorer. And let's open this in Firefox, there it is. All right, so if you switch over to the stream, you can see I've opened this HTML file in my web browser, and the title appears up here in the tab. And
this is index.html.
Yep.
No, the pastebin clone. Yep.
Yep. So that's where that actually appears. So
excellent. All right.
Oh, one last thing, pretty boring. This tag, you'll notice, doesn't have a closing tag. There's no like end meta, right?
Yeah.
That is something that is unique to HTML5. It allows you to have tags that are purely there for the sake of just their attributes. So an example would be this meta tag, another tag that works like this where it doesn't have contents on the inside is the image tag for inserting images into documents. Another one would be like text inputs, because those are something, both text inputs and images are called replaced elements. It's a little bit of a complicated concept, but they don't have contents. You can't put anything inside of them. So you just put the tag and no closing tag. Anyways, that's all the metadata in this document. Pretty boring. And inside of here, type anything you want.
Okay. let's see. Oops. All right. That's an interesting typo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry for my lack of imagination. That's just the first thing that comes to mind when I think of text.
No, fabulous, actually. So I'm going to come back over here to the web browser. We'll refresh this, and it appears right there on the page. So that's a pretty basic example.
Now,
yeah, that is... oh, no. 404, creativity not found. Well, you know, I happen to be a programmer and not a designer, and we are, after all, creating literally a paste bin clone. So originality is not necessarily the at the forefront of this stream here.
All right, gotcha.
No sweat. Okay, so inside of here, you know, when I'm developing a web app, I like to, I guess. This is not necessarily best practice. This is just what I like to do. I like to start by developing actually the user interface, just because it kind of gives me a feel of like what format would it make it easiest for me, what format should the data from the server be in that would make it easiest for me to deal with it on the front end. So I'll design the front end in the way that I would prefer to work with the front end, and then I will design the data format that the server deals with in the way that makes it easiest for the front end to deal with that data. So that's kind of why I work backwards. But I usually also do that on solo projects and projects where I'm working with other people. Sometimes it can change, but we're going to start from the front end because that gives very, instant gratifying results because we can see what happens right away.
And when you see front end, you mean what is viewed on, I guess, the client side, basically, of a web development?
Oh, yeah. That's actually a really good question. I shouldn't have just, jumped into servers and clients. It's, yeah.
No, that's fine.
So everything that we're going to be writing today is going to be client side. Anything HTML, CSS, and JavaScript most of the time is all client side, meaning the web browser requests, you send out the request for google.com or something, and then the server at google.com sends back an HTML page along with a couple other assets, like images or, CSS files, stuff like that. And all of those assets that the browser downloads and then combines into a web page, all of that stuff is the client side. And server-side code is what's executed actually before the server even sends the client-side info to the browser. So the browser will send out the request for google.com. Google.com will execute a whole bunch of server-side code, which could be JavaScript, but might also be like Python or Ruby or Java code, are all popular server-side languages. So it'll execute all that code. That code will generate a response, which could include, that the HTML files, the JavaScript files, the CSS files. It'll generate all of those files and send them back to the client that requested google.com. Does that make sense?
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
all
totally
right.
stop
and
me.
So in what ways, I guess, is client-side coding versus different from server-side coding? I guess that would be my question.
Okay. Yeah.
Just like 3 key distinctions or something like that before we dive into client-side coding.
So, biggest distinction, client-side code runs on the computer that's viewing the web page. Server-side code runs on the computer that I control, the computer that is, hosting the web page. That's by far the most important difference. And it's very important to understand that, first and foremost. Another key difference is server-side code. Technically, you could write that in just about any programming language you want because you control that computer.
Sure.
Whereas client-side code is, 99% of the time, as a web developer, the client is a web browser on a consumer's device, right? So
yeah, like Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever people are using.
Yeah, so like Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox or Opera or Safari, you know, there's a whole list of browsers. That actually leads to another interesting problem where you have to write code that actually works on all of those browsers, on all of those different platforms. So it needs to work on the Windows version of all those browsers. It needs to work on the Mac version of all those browsers. Plus, you have to develop for mobile devices like phones and tablets. So client-side code needs to be able to run on a whole bunch of different platforms, whereas with a server-side code, you control the computer. So you decide what operating system it's running, you decide what programming language to write it in. You know, you can control so much more about what's on the server than what's on the client. Another
excellent
important distinction is that client-side code, if it's running in a web browser, you're pretty much limited to 3 programming languages: HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. And they all serve kind of, all combined, they serve 4 purposes. HTML covers the contents of the data and the structure of the data. So, does that distinction make sense?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
So the code is probably a little bit more technical than the HTML or CSS or JavaScript or whatever you're writing the client-side code in, right?
The HTML is client-side. HTML holds, like, string data is pretty much what it holds. So like a P tag that stands for paragraph. Inside of here, we would have our lorem ipsum, right? And something like that. Or we can have like an image tag and, you know, something like this, and there's our image tag. So all of this is HTML. It is totally static. There is no logic to it. All it does is hold information, right? So in this case, that's text data, and in this case, it is the path to an image, right? So it's the structure and the contents of the data is what HTML deals with. And then, so you have HTML, and then JavaScript is all of the logic. So you're familiar with, you mentioned that you've done something with GameMaker that uses like a variant of JavaScript or something like that. So you're familiar. Yeah,
something like that.
With,
it was a long time ago, but yeah.
Yeah. So you'd become, or you would recognize, I guess, something that looked like this, you know.
Yeah. Script start and script end.
Mm-hmm. So something like this, then, you know, that looks like something. So this would be more like a JavaScript-esque code right here, you know, where you have this logic: if 4 is greater than 5, where you can have variables, you know, x is 56, x, you know, minus 7, you know, so like var y equals x minus 7, something like that. You have all your variables and your logic. That's what JavaScript deals with. And JavaScript can connect to and manipulate elements on your HTML page. And then finally, we have CSS, which looks like this. You'd say something like p background color is red. And this, actually, if we save this, I pop back over here to my HTML demo over here. Now the background color of that paragraph is bright red. So that's kind of what CSS does, is it affects the styling of the page. So CSS makes stuff look nice, JavaScript makes stuff work, and HTML holds all of the information.
All right, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
Okay. So those are the 3 client-side web technologies. We're only going to be working with those 3 for the first couple of streams here. And actually for this stream, we're probably only going to be doing HTML and CSS. because we're going to design the user interface. So, are you familiar with what a paste bin is?
I've heard the name, but I'm not entirely sure what that is.
Yeah, so pastebin, pastebin.com is, I think, by far the largest, most popular pastebin. The idea is you open up pastebin.com and you get a big place where you can, paste in a whole bunch of text, and then you press save, and it assigns it a unique URL akin to like a YouTube URL, where it's just like a bunch of random letters and numbers. And then you can just go to pastebin.com/ whatever that random sequence of letters and numbers is, and it'll show you that piece of text.
I see. So that's just a means of sharing text over the internet.
Yes, exactly.
Say you have, okay, interesting.
So that's the idea for this project. It's not going to be like having user accounts or syntax highlighting, or probably not even going to do like paste expiration, which is something that pastebin.com has. And everything will be, I guess, unlisted, so to speak. So there's not going to be a repository of like, oh, look at all of the latest pastes. Or, maybe we could do that. We'll just have to see. But we're going to start out, actually, if I reopen this pastebin.com, what are some like major significant user interface elements that you think are absolutely vital for our page to have?
Well, first of all, the create new paste button, I think.
Yes, definitely.
And then there's the text box.
Yep.
And if you're not having a repository,
we don't necessarily need this part right here, this sidebar.
I think that's all you'd need, because you don't need. Yeah, I think all you need is the create new paste button and the new paste text area. Yeah.
That's absolutely right as far as I can tell. All the rest of this is just like information about pastebin and stuff. So we're just calling ours pastebin clone. I suppose we might want like a header or something, but like that's not very important. So let's come over here and actually figure out how to design this type of thing. So everything in the body tag is what is displayed to the screen. Everything in the head, that was the metadata. And so, let's see. I guess I don't want to say like, give it your best shot, but let's see. So text areas are just, the tag is called text area. If we do this, go over here, refresh, we have this little box, and we can type stuff in it, and it's really kind of lame because it's a monospace font and it's a really small text area. But that is, also, now this is kind of interesting, but it's resizable. I don't know why exactly they added that, but text areas are resizable by default.
All right.
Which personally I find to be kind of strange, but whatever.
Is there any way you can manually set the size of it to begin with?
That is a great question, and the answer is absolutely yes. So, since that size, the size of this text area can technically be specified in two different ways. Originally, before CSS, I guess, was quite as ubiquitous as it is now, size of a text area was specified as an attribute of the text area, which we can still do right now. So that's rows here, and then columns there, and you just specify a number in there, and that will give you that number of text rows and text columns. So go ahead, do, I guess,
sure,
put whatever you want in there.
That pastebin looked like it had, well, I think it's just probably an infinite amount for pastebin, because I've seen some people put some, I don't know, it seems to me that people put a lot of stuff in there. So I'm just going to do, does that seem excessive to you, 10 of each?
That actually seems rather small to me, to be perfectly honest.
That's rather small? Okay.
Yes.
And then I All right, then I guess I'll just go with. Oh, is that would that be 20 characters by?
Yes, 20 characters wide by 20 characters tall.
Oh, okay. Definitely. Then I'll change that up quite a bit. Can we see what that looks like?
Absolutely. So that is a very tall rectangle.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Then I probably would want more columns than rows. I'll do 100. Make it a little wider then.
No, it looks just about like a square.
Okay.
Still very large.
You know what? Let's just go down a bit. I'll go with 20 and 80. That seems like a reasonable amount based on what I've seen.
Okay. I'm trying to see if there's a way to attach. I think I actually need to do that in Chrome. Never mind. Okay, so that is, yeah, that looks like pretty good size to me, actually. So, actually, I should just keep Pastebin open over here so we can keep coming back to it and referring to it. So, as far as, like, what you would consider to be, like, styling, so how things look, where things are, what color things are, what font things are, what kind of major differences are you seeing right now between these two guys?
Well, it looks like there's a margin. So
yeah, like this space right here?
Yeah, in between the text box and the edge of the screen on the left side.
Yeah, so we have this like
right
off-white space over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see how we could add something like that. Because that's getting more into the styling things, how things look, where things are. This is going to be where we're going to resort to some CSS. So, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Oh, and HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language.
Oh, thank you. I was wondering about that.
Yeah, hypertext is the idea of like having links that, you know, click on one and it brings you to another page. So, and that was what HTML was originally created to do, I guess, is have those nifty links. CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. We will get to the reason why they are called cascading in just a bit. But let's figure out how to add one of those. So there's actually two major ways to add CSS to your document. You can do that inside of a style tag, and then the contents of this tag will just be interpreted as CSS. So I can just have like my text area styles here, and then, you know, something like that. Go over here and refresh. Now we have a blue text area, right? So
okay,
that's one place where we can put our CSS. The other place is we can have it in a separate file, and that is usually considered best practice. So over here, I'm going to create a new file called styles.css, and I'm going to rip this from here, paste that in there, and oh goodness, there we go. All right, so now this is over here, but we have to link these two files together, right? So we do that using, guess what it's called? A link tag. Okay, and this is a tag that doesn't have any contents because there's no text exactly, and it just takes what's called an href is that a hypertext reference or just a, I don't actually remember what H stands for. Anyways, and we give it the path to our file. Are you familiar with what this / here means?
No, I know the slash in the other references in this block of code, it referred to a block of code ending, basically, right?
Right. But as you can see, like this is all inside of these double quotes, and so as the syntax highlighting kind of gives away, it's not considered to be part of a tag because all the tags are, I don't know, you might have different color syntax highlighting, but they're all like blue or something. All of the tags, like this is all blue, something, this should be the same
Yeah.
color. But then this is a different color from that, and this is a different color as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then with the link href, you're calling another sheet basically.
Right. So this is just it's actually, I could put a web address in here. The dot just means the current directory, and slash is a separator. So
Okay, so it's kind of like writing a dashed line to refer to basically the same thing in the paragraph above it, like when you're writing something.
Yeah, that's exactly
that's
right.
the best example I can think of. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. The other important thing is, so we have dot slash. Dot means the current directory. So if I actually come over here, the dot represents all of this right here.
Okay.
In my address bar, and then the slash takes the same place as this slash right here, and then it replaces this with style.css, or styles, I guess I called it, right there. Right.
Okay.
So that's how that works.
Oh, I see.
I guess I have failed to save this file or something. Why is this not blue? Well, that's fabulous. Oh, it's probably mad at me. What? Oh, of course. There. Oh. There, now we go. Of course, yes. So, I failed to specify that the type of this link was a style sheet link. So the browser technically didn't know what to do with it.
Okay, all right.
Again, the stream is going to be full of very stupid errors on my part.
It's fine.
This rel stands for relation, which is an interesting choice of terminology, to be perfectly honest. I would have just called it like type or something like that, but style sheet, whatever. And by default, it's assumed to be CSS. You can also specify the type to be text CSS. And everything inside of these double quotes here, that's what's called a MIME type. They are surprisingly actually not terribly well defined, but text/CSS is the standard one for specifying a CSS file. But that is not necessary because style sheets are almost always CSS style sheets in web development, at least. So it is not necessary to specify the type. All right. So we have our style sheet linked up, and we want to add some margin here and margin here. And it's actually fabulous that you chose that term margin, because that is exactly what it is called in the CSS here.
Oh, so, beautiful.
Yeah. So we have 4 different places where we can put margin around an element. By the way, CSS styles are grouped into rules. This is a CSS style rule that will change the styling for all text area elements. All of them. So if we were to add in another text area element here, they would, they would both be, or all 3 of them would be styled the exact same.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, just give me...
So the CSS style sheet kind of sets the tone for the style of the entire page.
Yes.
Okay.
But like, you might be thinking like, well, what if I want my 2 text areas styled differently? There are ways that you can specify one text area specifically. You might just have to add some identifying features to it in the HTML. But for now, we're just going to have one text area because we only need one, because it's a paste bid, right?
Okay, sure, yeah.
So we'll just stick over here with this text area CSS rule here, and we'll add some margins. So we want to add margin on the left and the right. So that'll look like this. And margin right. And we will put the values in here. And those can be a lot of different things. They can be percentages, they can be pixels, they can be inches, they could be centimeters, they could be fractions of the size of your monitor. Those are called VW and VH, or VMin and VMax units. There's lots of different units that we can put in here. But because we want this to be centered, correct?
Yep.
We want this to be in the middle. There's actually not a centered keyword exactly. You can't do like 50% here and 50% here, because that will look like this. We have 50% of the screen width right here, right? And then 50% is trying to fit.
So you'd really want 25% or something around that.
Well, maybe that would actually depend on the width of your text area. So if your text area is 50% of the screen width, then you could put 25% over here on the left and 25% over here on the right, and that would work, right? Because then it adds up to 100%. So we can actually try that. So we could say margin left is 25%, margin right is 25, and then instead of specifying the rows and columns here in the text area, we can specify a width and a height in the CSS. So we can just say width is 50% to make it centered, and height is, 300 pixels or something like that. Right.
Okay.
So now it should be approximately centered. It won't actually be exactly centered. Well, shouldn't be exactly precisely centered because of a little thing. Well, actually, it might be centered. I forget how percentages work in CSS. Because I think the body margin should affect it. Actually, it might not, because no, that's only for sibling elements. Well, it appears to be perfectly centered.
Okay. Beautiful.
I would have thought there would be a few extra pixels due to like this border here, and as you can see, like, we didn't add any top margin, but this isn't glued right up to the top of the page here. That's because the body tag has some default margin to it. So if I open up my developer tools here, you can see we have 8 pixels of margin. But if we were to reduce that margin to 0, now it's glued right up to the top here of the page. You can see that. As opposed to if we remove it. Oh,
but we don't want that, right? We want it to be kind of further down, because we probably want a header or at least some text that says paste bin.
Yes. Yeah,
or paste your text here.
Yeah, exactly. So we can actually do that. Would you rather center this absolutely right now, like make sure it's always centered, or add the header first?
I'd rather add the header first.
Okay, cool. So we'll add that over in HTML. And you might be surprised to learn that this tag is the incorrect tag to add a large header. If you add text in here, it will look the exact same as text inside of any other tag, actually. So the header tag, surprisingly enough, is not actually the tag we want for this job. Rather, we want the tag, the H1 tag. That stands for header level 1. The tag called header actually is a new tag that was introduced to HTML in 2015-ish and has no default styling intentionally, because it is a purely semantic tag. So this tag is visually equivalent to, this tag. and to this tag.
So it's just text that happens to appear on the top of the screen.
Yes. Well, actually, I could put this at the bottom.
Oh, so it's just text in that case.
Yes. Everything in here, they're just labeled as header, footer, main, and div. They don't actually do anything special. So
then the H1 tag is header level 1, correct?
Yes, and that one has styling attached to it. So if we go over here, now we can see what's in our header level 1 tag over here, which is just text, is large and bolded. And it actually has a bit of margin up here as well. So, but you'll also notice that it isn't centered. So we get to learn how to center that. Paste your text here. I love it. Perfect. Okay. So if we're going to come over here to our CSS, how, based on what you've seen of CSS right now, how would you write a rule that is going to target and only affect level 1 headers?
Would it be something like, well, let me see. If I were to write out something like this, oh, that's not turning gold. I would assume not then. Okay, text area. Let me see if I can figure this out. So text area. That's probably what we want to start with, but with a condition, correct? Or am I completely off?
So this is what the CSS rule just kind of looks like. That's just right, exactly. But this would again target text areas, right? So instead we want to change that to H1. So that will target a level 1 header, right?
Okay, so that's partially right to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. And then everything inside of the curly braces is your rules. Again, there's a little tiny bit of logic that you can put in CSS, but it is primarily not a logic, like a vector of logic. That's primarily what JavaScript does, is deals with logic. So
this is just a stylistic sheet. Well, style sheet.
Yeah, exactly. It's a style sheet.
Yeah.
Cascading style sheets, CSS. So you just pasted the rules from text area in here, so we'll have the exact same rules on our first level header as we have on our text area. Let's see what that looks like.
Okay, so we don't want that much space in between, so let me just change that. That would be the height, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now I'll probably set that to around 75 pixels.
Well, we could do that, or we could let the browser calculate it for itself.
All right.
And, we can just remove the height, and then the browser will do it by itself. And now it fits exactly perfectly, because the browser knows how high this text will be. But
oh, very nice.
Yeah.
All right. So, should we get on to putting in the button then?
Yeah.
That generates the pastebin link? All right.
All right. So, you are in luck because the tag for a button is called button. So why don't you write one of those?
All right. That should be pretty easy. So, what should we put in here?
Well, put whatever you want in there, and I guess see what comes out on the other end. That is a absolutely massive component of programming, is trial and error.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
All right, and then do we have to do something with the style CSS page to specify where it appears on the page?
Well, by default, you can see it appeared right down here. So you can kind of tell that our page is flowing down, and it sticks everything to the left then as well, right? So, this is going to get kind of annoying if we stick I
hope I did the right thing.
Well, okay, so that's going to be a very wide button. because you've adjusted the width.
The buttons. Okay, yeah.
So
let's set the width. I'll just get rid of that because it'll automatically be the right size, right?
Yes.
And then we want to specify the height, correct?
Well, you can.
Okay.
Or you can leave it the default height, or whatever you want.
All right. Let's do that then. Let's see what that looks like.
Sweet. So there's our button, kind of tiny, and down here below our...
Very much so, yep.
Yeah. So, something that might get a little annoying, and you may have already picked up on this, is that every time we add a new element, we're copying and pasting the exact same set of rules, right? From the top here all the way down to the bottom, all of them have margin left and margin right set to 25%. Well,
sure.
What if later we decided we actually wanted these spaces over here to be 30% of the space of the page, or maybe pastebin, it looks like they might only be 20%, right? So what if we want to change that? Then we have to change all of these. So that's kind of inconvenient. What would be nicer is if we just had all of them inside of, you can see right here, all of the elements here are inside of this big white box, and then the background here is just this off-white, right? But the white box, everything is inside of the white box, and that white box is what is centered on the page, and everything else is arranged within the white box, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So we can create our own white box, so to speak, and then arrange everything within that box. And that'll make it easier on us later if we want to change the width of that box, right? So we can create this box by adding a tag right immediately after the body tag, right up here, that encompasses all of our visual elements on the page so far. And this one could be called main, or a div tag. Div is the most generic HTML tag there is. The name means nothing. It means division. And it literally is there to be a tag when you just need to group things together. So it's the most generic one. Or we can call it main, which is a little bit more semantically correct, but again, it has no styling attached to it. But as you can see now, everything is within our main tag. And on your editor, does if I have my cursor here, does the top main tag up here also highlight? To kind of highlight both of them together?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I see, yep.
Perfect. So now everything is inside of our main tag. And what would happen if we said main, make this main rule up here, and take, I guess, these three rules, put them in here, and then since everything else is inside of the main tag, and it'll be arranged from the top down, left to right, inside of the main tag, we don't need all of these things on our elements anymore. Let's see, just like that. We don't need those anymore. So if we come back over here,
sweet.
And oh my goodness, what?
Ooh, sorry, that was supposed to be commented out.
I was gonna say that is the weirdest bug I've ever encountered. Yeah. Oh, but we've actually encountered a little bit of an issue here. So I've opened my developer tools, and I've clicked this little button here. It's called pick an element from the page, right? And then if I just mouse over something, it'll kind of select it, right? And so you can see here, this box that's highlighted in blue, this little thing down here, it says that it's main. You can see the pink text right in this little drop-down thingy.
Yep.
So our main box is the right size and location, right? But now everything is kind of haphazardly arranged within here. So we can actually head back over to our styles and give our text area a little something called actually, if we take a look at this guy right now, so I'll click on it, select it in my dev tools, and we can inspect this guy here and view all of the CSS rules that are currently being applied to it. So you can see here's our text area rule here that says height is 300 pixels. If we come over here to the computed tab, now if you're on Chrome, I think it's actually called the same thing. Oh, does it not? Okay, and I have to check browser styles. So now here are all of the CSS styles that are currently being applied to this text area, which is actually quite a lot for us only applying one, you know?
Yep.
So I'm going to look at this particular one called display. And we can see right now it's set to display inline. There are a bunch of different display modes that HTML elements or HTML tags. When an HTML tag is rendered to a page, we call it an element. So this is a text area element right now. So elements can have a lot of different display modes. One of them is inline, another is block. So inline content, display inline content, is going to flow like plain text. So as you add elements, pretend each character on here is an element. As you add elements, they're going to be added left to right, and then they will wrap when they hit the edge of the page, and they'll just keep continuing down the page, right? That's how inline elements work. Block elements, it's like pressing enter. It takes up its own space, right? Here's my block element. And then we have more inline elements, right?
Yep.
So if we want this text area, like this text area element, this whole thing, not the inside of it, but like it's flowing, like if I go all the way out here, you can see like the button is also an inline element, so it flows once it hits the invisible edge of our box here, right?
Yeah.
So it wraps around just like characters do on in this text area. You know, when it hits the bound of the text area, it wraps over. It's the same thing. So that's how inline elements work. But we want this, we want the text area to take up its entire width and be on its own line. So we can change its display mode to block. So we'll come over here and say display is block. And then if we, refresh, now it's on its own line, right? Its width still isn't correct, but it's on its own line. And that's what we want. And then we can just say width. Instead of saying width is 50%, we'll say its width is 100% because the percentage is based on its parent element. So it's 100% of the width of its parent element, which is our main invisible white box here, right? So its width is 100% of its parent element, which is exactly what we wanted. All right.
Ooh, looks like we got some more viewers here.
Hey.
Excellent. Welcome. I am just being schooled. I mean, taught how to web develop.
Yeah. So I guess we can quick introduction for anyone who hasn't been here since the start of the stream again. My name is Jacob. I run the YouTube channel GeekLaunch. And this is my friend Jack on the other end.
Hello.
And he runs the YouTube channel Jackalope Studios and does a lot of cool VFX work and video editing and stuff like that. And
yes, sir.
We're working together on a anonymous paste bin project. And he has not done a lot of programming before, so we're kind of swapping expertise here is kind of the idea behind this stream. So we're starting from pretty much the ground and going up. And yeah, so this is where we are right now. Paste your text. All right, so I kind of like how this looks right now. I think we're progressing really well.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
What would you say would be like something that if someone visits this website, they're going to look at this? Well, first of all, I guess they're going to look at this, and what do you think they're going to think?
Well, first of all, I think they'll think they've stumbled upon a dark web page. But second of all, I think they'll want to click on the button after they've clicked on the button that says "Click me, please."
Yeah.
But it won't do anything, right?
Yeah, it doesn't do anything right now.
Yep.
It does absolutely 0 things. You can click this button as much as you want. It does 0 things. So like, if we're primarily focusing on like how things look right now and how things, where things are displayed and positioned and stuff like that, like there are some pretty significant differences between this page here on pastebin.com, which we are low-key copying, and this page where, you know, we have 3 elements on the page.
Okay.
So let's see. There are a couple things we can do to spice it up. 1, we could add color. 2, we could change some borders. We could add borders. We could add more spacing. We could change like fonts. We could add. We could make the buttons look nice when they're clicked. Like this button, it kind of has a click effect here. So when you press down, it adds this inset shadow.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. So we could copy that. We could add that to our button. So because this button, it looks like a default Windows button right now, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let's figure out how to change that. So we're over here in our styles.css file, and we will play around with our button rule here. The first thing we can do to remove all of the browser styles on it, or the default styles, is just say appearance is none. And then it will look extremely boring. Actually, it looks just like a very old Windows button.
Oh my gosh, that looks like Windows 95.
Right.
Looks like my grandma's laptop.
Yeah, so that's what happens when you remove the default Windows styles to it now. But also now you can tell like the styles on this are a lot more simple. So it basically has a background color and it has a border, right? It has a border and it's like kind of moving a little bit when you mouse over it or when you click on it, right? It kind of like insets a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Essentially now there's a heck of a lot fewer styles applied to it. So, I mean, it doesn't look like it because there's still like 1,000. But it's just a lot more, it's not using the styles from the computer here. So now we can add our own. So we're going to start with the background, which we can modify with this rule called background. Simple enough. And this, are you familiar with hex colors?
Hex colors.
Like if I showed you a color that looks like that, would you know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think they use that in Photoshop.
Yeah.
I mean,
they do use that in Photoshop.
A lot of programs use that. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're probably familiar with this, like
yeah, RGB like values. Yep.
So you can use those two. You can also use RGBA like this.
I want our background to be 80s green shag carpet. No, I'm kidding. We don't have to do that. We could go with an off-white. That'd be more than fine.
So there are some color keywords as well.
Okay. Antique white.
Antique white. Now we have, is that about shag carpet?
Not quite, but it's all right. I like it.
Or we can say like, oops, brown, like so. Or we can copy them over here, do like a light gray.
I think a light gray would be very professional. Let's go with that.
Okay. There's a light gray. Okay.
All right.
Cool. So something else that they have here is they kind of have a little bit more space around here, space between the edge of the button and the text within the button. So at first it might be like, oh yeah, we can use margin for that too, but we can't because margin would be between the edge here. So if we apply margin to the button, that would be space between the edge here and the edge of its container. So this is where the margin would go, or right here, out this direction is where margin would go. The other spacing one we have, spacing rule, I guess we have, type of space, is between the edge of the element and its content on the inside, and that's called padding. It's applied very similarly to how margin is. You can just say padding here, or padding like top, right? Also, there are ways where you can just say padding is like this, and then specify 4 different values for top, right, left, or top, right, down, bottom, and left in that order.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's more clear to say padding left.
Yeah, I think that answers a question I had earlier in this stream.
Oh, what was that?
Oh, just that the padding. I wasn't really sure what the term for it was, but something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So we have padding values. Padding left, we can say like 8 pixels, and we'll do the same one for right, and for bottom, and for top. And then if we refresh that, that's what it looks like. And something I like to do with my buttons is usually do between 1.5 to maybe 2.5 times the amount of padding on the sides, on the left and the right, as the top and bottom. And I think that makes the buttons look kind of nice. So I'll do like, oops, sorry, that's top. I'll do about maybe 12 pixels for the left and right. Maybe even more than that. There we go. So
yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, it kind of evens it out a bit, and I like that. Let's see, another thing. What is another difference that you notice between the button on pastebin.com here and our button?
Well, it's spaced a little bit, but that's just a stylistic difference. I guess mainly just that it doesn't do anything.
Okay. Well, doing stuff will be more of a, maybe when we get into JavaScript, we can start doing that. I suppose we can do JavaScript now if you want.
I don't think I'll be able to tonight, but I would definitely be down to do that another time.
Okay, cool. The stream did just take over to an hour, so if you want to be done now, we can be done now.
Sure. All right. I think this has been a very informative stream. I learned a lot already. I've never done anything with HTML. I've accidentally clicked in the inspect button, so I don't know if that counts. But I definitely know a lot more now than I did yesterday. So,
well, that's
thank
awesome.
you very much.
Oh yeah, no, totally, my pleasure. And
all right,
yeah, for any of the viewers here, these streams are going to be about once a week. I think we're going to be doing something like this. On Thursdays. So
Thursdays, yep.
Today is Thursday, right? Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then we're also going to be doing Blender streams. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're going to be doing Blender streams, learning the basics of Blender. Yeah, it's going to be really fun.
All right. So that sounds good. I think we made a lot of good progress today. And yeah, I guess we can end the stream here then.
Yes, thank you everyone for watching, for those of you who are, and we'll be putting some of the highlight reels up on YouTube channel and GeekLaunch. Is that correct, Jacob?
Yes, they will be up on... Yes, that's correct. All right.
All right, excellent. It's been fun, but I must go, unfortunately. Have a great night, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.